since day one. Before I made this YouTube channel. You know, they're great, but don't get Jay started on politics. Don't ever get him started on politics, because sometimes he just overreacts and doesn't really look at the facts. And I kind of feel bad for Brian that he has to go through this, dilemma, that has to go through this feud that really has nothing to do with him. But Jay is making it sound like it had to do with Brian, when really it had to do with him. But yet, Kat kind of blamed both of them, when really this should be an issue between Jay and Kat, because Jay was the one who said to Brian that he disagrees with him about, you know, that you can't compare transgender to being transracial. And Brian basically said, it may not have been in his exact words, that you cannot compare the two because they're two completely different things, you know? But Kat kind of overreacted and kind of was like, oh, these two run the channel, so these two cisgender white gay men are comparing transracial to transgender, when really it was only the one guy and it wasn't both. So, Kat and Jay, do us all a favor, please stop overreacting. I suggest that Kat watches that video again and carefully listen to Brian versus listening to Jay. And then I suggest that Jay watches Kat's videos about transracial and transgender and how they're different. Because obviously Brian knows what he's talking about. You know, Brian disagrees that they're the same thing. It was Jay who was mostly doing the talking. You know, so I don't hate them. I don't hate Depfox. I don't hate Kat Blaque. You know, I'm still going to watch their videos, of course. But I do feel they both kind of overreacted just a tiny bit. And I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for this, but I really don't care. But as a trans guy myself, you know, there are a lot of things I agree with Kat on, and there are a lot of things I agree with Brian and Jay on. But this topic, when it came to this beef between Kat and Depfox, this I do not agree with. You know, I do not agree that two cisgender gay men who are white should not be talking about trans issues, because here's simply why. They were talking about like with their son, Daniel. You know, they asked if he had any friends who are trans, and he said yes. And he talked about one of his classmates. And then they said the same thing, you know, with Brian's friend, one of Brian's friends who is a trans man. This was how many years ago? I forget. I think this was back in 2008 or 2009. Back in 2008 or 2009, they talked about this. And, you know, Kat was kind of saying that they shouldn't be talking about trans issues when really they've been talking about people who are in the trans community since the beginning of their channel, pretty much. But also, I disagree with Jay trying to compare, transracial to being transgender. I absolutely do disagree with Jay on that. Now, I do feel Brian should speak up a little bit more when he disagrees with his husband. I feel like Brian needs to step in and speak for once in his videos when, he hears his husband say something wrong. I absolutely do agree Brian needs to step up a little bit more instead of having Jay do all the talking. I'm not saying that Brian is a coward. I'm saying Brian needs to step in a little bit more because I can tell he seems a little camera shy. And that's cool because I can be sometimes camera shy too, but, especially with other people. But I think Kat and Jay need to settle this. This needs to be really between Kat and Jay rather than Kat and Brian and Jay, because Brian pretty much had nothing to do with this whole thing. I think Kat needs to watch all of Depfox's videos since the very beginning. Watch all of their videos about trans lives. But also, Jay needs to watch all of Kat's videos about trans people and trans people of color. They need to... This is mostly between Jay and Kat, not Brian, Jay, and Kat. Again, I feel both channels, I feel like both people overreacted slightly a bit. Mostly Jay in this case, because Jay does have the tendency to overreact in many of his videos that involves politics. Both of these YouTubers are my favorite YouTubers, but they both need to settle this and actually talk to each other rather than both making videos bashing each other. Yep. That's all I have to say about this whole YouTube dilemma between two of my favorite YouTube channels. And again, this video is not a video hating on them. It's a video basically saying they need to work this out. And I think all YouTubers who, are having a dilemma or having an argument need to settle this out like adults instead of acting like children. So yeah.